Good evening, everyone. I'm Vishal Salsekar, and today we are going to cover the News Today articles for 5th of November, right? So, in today's discussion, we are going to cover four important articles in detail, which includes the first article regarding the declining credibility of the global institutions. So previously we had discussed the article regarding multilateralism and how the multilateralism is declining presently, right? So we will discuss regarding how the credibility of multiple global institutions. Previously those were considered as the legitimate institutions, but now there has been an observance of the declining credibility in these organizations. Next is regarding Amul and IFFCO, top two global cooperatives. So there has been recently a release of the ranking as far as the cooperatives are concerned, and the Amul and IFFCO respectively became the first and the second prominent cooperative across the world. So that's why the cooperative movement, specifically regarding Amul and IFFCO, we are going to talk about. Next is regarding railway safety. So there has been a railway accident that had happened in Chhattisgarh, a very unfortunate incident, but that incident talks about that how the safety is a very prominent and the important aspect as far as any mode of communication is concerned. So here we are going to talk about the recent accidents, the issues with respect to the railway safety, and what are the solutions that are being done right now, right? Next is regarding the India's rise in the QS, which is the Quackerly Simons ranking of Asia Universities ranking 2026. So this is regarding the Asia University ranking. So India has got comparatively better standing as far as the Asian universities are concerned, right? Next, we are going to cover certain other quick updates as a part of the discussion, right? So let's start the discussion with the very first article regarding the India's role amid the declining credibility and the perceived biases of the Western-led global institutions. Now, why we are talking about this? Because obviously from the perspective of UPSC examination, it is important. GS paper 2, where there is an international relations related topic regarding the institutions or the global institutions. So that's why it is important, global governing institutions. Apart from that, role of the multilateral groupings. GS paper 3, economy, technology, sustainable development, because these are the areas where generally the global institutions are working, whether it is environment, whether it is global peace, whether it is human rights or the human development. These institutions are very, very important. Now, talking about the India's role and the issues that these particular institutions are presently facing. So the most important issue that these institutions are facing is the issue of credibility. Why so? Because see, in the last few years, we have observed that these institutions are not working in such a manner that were expected to be working previously when these organizations were formed. For example, when you talk about the World Trade Organization, this particular organization was formed in late 90s in order to provide and facilitate the free and fair trade. Now, free, obviously, it's not like removing all the tariff, but to facilitate the trade in such a manner that the tariffs and the other issues should be comparatively reduced and the seamless trade can be ensured. But in 2019, what was the issue that was observed? That United States blocked the appointment of the WTO's appellate tribunal. Now, when USA blocked the appointment to that particular tribunal, now since 2019, there is no such appointments were made. This body became dysfunctional. Next, talking about UNSC. UNSC में permanent 5 member, they were not added any new member since the इंसेप्शन व्हेन दीज पर्टिकुलर परमानेंट 5 मेंबर्स वर एडेड, उसके बाद से कोई परमानेंट मेंबर ऐड नहीं हुआ है. दैट इज फेसिंग द इशू ऑफ क्रेडिबिलिटी. Another issue with respect to IMF, in the IMF, which is to help the countries with the financial instability wala situations like the balance of payment crisis, at that particular situation also, the problem is that there are certain countries which are the Western countries which are having considerably more amount of voting power. For example, only US have more than 16% roughly. And when you are having 16% and for major change, more than 85% of votes are needed. अब एक कंट्री के पास है more than 16%. Can there be any amendment that will be done substantially in that organization? Only US have to agree with that, then only there will be certain important decision making. So that's why it is said that some countries are still playing a very important role, which are ensuring that their vested interests are getting served. Now, recently we have observed that in the case of the Russia-Ukraine crisis, there were a lot of Western sanctions. Has that similar thing happened when the Israel and Hamas issue erupted, right? So that standard is not same for all the countries. So that's what is being talked about, that institutional biases and the double standards are being observed when we talk about the issue of the credibility of these institutions or the Western basically the legitimacy related issues of the Western institutions. जो Western countries ने बनाए थे, या that point of time they were the countries which were governing the entire order, those particular institutions are now facing the credibility crisis. Next, talking about the dysfunctional institutions, we have talked about WTO, that since 2019 there has not been any new appointment to the appellate tribunal. That's how the organization which was created in order to ensure the fair trade at the global level, that institution itself is facing the credibility issue. Next, when we talk about the non-representative institutions, we have also discussed regarding the UNSC that there are permanent 5 members which were representing the global order of the post-World War II. Now, is that same order presently remaining? India has improved significantly, whether you talk about population wise, whether you talk about economy wise, whether you talk about defense wise. So is there any consideration of these particular standing? The answer is clearly no. So that means these are not representative institution. Simultaneously, there has been improvement on the global south countries vis-a-vis these particular aspects are concerned, and still there has not been recognition of those countries in this particular fora. Talking about what is the strategic implication that it is doing with respect to giving not proper representation to these countries. First is increasing global instability. Why? Because see, when these particular countries which seek their rightful place at the international level, and when these countries are not getting their rightful place, that means obviously these countries will not want to cooperate with that particular institution because of their perceived Western biases. And in that particular context, when these institutions were formed in order to create certain global good, now these institutions are also causing the instability because the geopolitical tension is high. Russia-Ukraine crisis the Western countries have sanctioned Russia, the US have sanctioned Russia, and they are also sanctioning those countries which are doing trade with Russia. In the name of that, you are fueling the war in Russia-Ukraine, but at the same time, you are not doing anything with respect to the Israel-Hamas conflict. So isn't it posing certain geopolitical tension between the recent or the new type of Cold War that is emerging? Next is the reduced international trade. Now link it with the directly WTO body. Suppose if there is any unfair trade practice that is going on, if there have to be any kind of appeal that has to be put in WTO regarding that, is this body functional? Answer is no. In that particular case, who is going to deal with that? So there are certain internal mechanisms. Those mechanisms are dominated by the Western countries. So in that particular cases, obviously these countries are facing the issues with respect to the reduced trade. Along with that, the policies like the tariff policy of President of the United States, right? Along with that, there are certain institutions, for example, SWIFT, which is helping in the facilitation of the currency transfer, currency exchange, and also facilitating the Western or the dollar domination as far as the international currency system is concerned. This is being utilized by the United States as a foreign policy tool. Means Russian ट्रेड के और या फिर रशियन फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस थे which were earlier linked to SWIFT, now they were removed after the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So in that particular case, you have utilized the SWIFT payment system or the payment gateway as a tool to serve your foreign policy. So that's what is being talked about. Lastly, spurring of the energy prices. Now, if there are conflict going on, for example, in West Asia, it is going to impact the supply of the energy resources, which will directly impact in the energy security of the country. And specifically, the impact will be more on those countries which are comparatively lesser developed countries or the developing countries. So this will bring the volatility. Now, when the volatility will be there will be price rise. When the price will increase, किनके पास ज़्यादा पैसे नहीं है? Which countries are facing the issues with respect to the monetary aspect? It is basically the developing countries and the least developed countries, and they are going to face the major chunk of this particular crisis. And that's what is being talked about in this particular article. Now, having discussed about that, now what are the opportunities that India is having? So when we talk about 1945, India was under the colonial domination of Britain. After that, in 1947, India got independent. Since then, India has significantly improved upon, whether it is political domain, economic domain, strategic defense domain, in all the spectrums. Has India got the rightful place? The answer is clearly no, because still India is in the race for the UNSC membership, or the permanent membership we can talk about, but that is not being provided. India became the fourth largest economy at the global level. Still no much recognition. IMF may be voting quota. The rightful quota that India deserve is not available for India right now. So economic influence has increased. India is supporting a lot of country. 2022 is one such example where India supported Sri Lanka even before IMF stepped in the financial instability. So that means India is doing credible role, but there is a problem that still this particular role is not being recognized by the global institutions. So that's what is the problem, and hence India can utilize this by becoming the voice of the Global South countries, and for which India is already organizing the Voice of Global South Summit. So hosting the Voice of Global South Summit, which is India's focus, the Global South. Along with that, in 2023, when G20 में India also invited the African Union, and in that particular summit only the African Union got the membership of G20. That is also Voice of Global South. India is supporting to the southern countries, specifically the countries of the Global South, through certain infrastructural project. For example, Asia Africa Growth Corridor is there, right? So these are certain things through which India is supporting. And when we talk about defense, India is supporting through the deals like the BrahMos deal, defense indigenization of many such countries, supporting their basic claims against the major countries, right? So this is there. Along with that, strategic non-alignment. So still India ka clear-cut foreign policy stand is that we are not aligning with any country. We are just aligning with interests. Suppose karo, if those interests are part of the India's national interest also, then we will align with that particular objective. But that does not mean that we are going in any kind of alliance. So India is rejecting any alliance. Yes, India is doing role as a part of the major partner of many such countries which want India's support in their development, which include the country of Africa, the countries of the Indian Ocean region. So it is the policy of strategic non-alignment, credibility as the impartial leader. Recently, in the case of the Israel and the Palestine issue also, India supported the claims of Israel also, but also supported the peaceful resolution in the form of the two-state solution, right? Lastly, the cultural capital. Yes, India is a civilizational state. India is having a legacy. India is having a history. So in that particular context, the civilizational ethos, which includes the philosophy of the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, like the entire earth is the one family, one earth, one family, right? So all these things are basically part of the Indian culture, and that's why India deserves the rightful place at the global fora. Now India is working upon, yes, through the diaspora mobilization, through certain other initiative that India can play a very important role in, right? So in all these senses, India is doing prominent work. Along with that, the basic planning regarding the Viksit Bharat by 2047 is one such prominent thing through which India is trying to mobilize its resources, right? But still, there are certain issues as far as the global order is concerned. Next, so like this, we have discussed the previously question that in 2025 UPSC had asked the questions like this regarding the globalization and deglobalization, regarding the reform process at UNSC. So these are certain things which you can also focus upon in the wake of the issues with respect to multilateralism or issues in the wake of the rising deglobalization. Next article is regarding the Amul and IFFCO became the world's top 2 cooperatives as far as the recent rankings of the International Cooperative Association is concerned, right? So GS paper 2, government policies and intervention, specifically for the welfare related things, because cooperatives are also supporting with respect to that. Along with that, GS paper 3, which talks about the inclusive growth, economic development, right? And even along with that, the cooperatives also find their mention as far as the constitution presently is concerned. Through the amendment, they became the part of the constitution. So the constitutional recognition is also there. That's why they are important and can be asked in the examination also. Now, talking about the cooperatives in India, so recently there has been the ranking that is in the form of the World Cooperative Monitor. So prelims related one such thing that can be asked, that recently World Cooperative Monitor was recently released by whom? The International Cooperative Alliance, ICA. So this can be a fact that UPSC can also be interested in from the prelims perspective. Now, what are the cooperatives? See, as the name suggests, that there is a sense of cooperation, means people are coming together, pooling their own resources, working towards achieving of certain objective which is common in nature. It can be economic objective, it can be political objective, it can be social objective, it can be cultural or any other type of objective. So it is a autonomous association of the persons who are united voluntarily. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि somebody is forcing them. There is voluntary association of the people to meet their common economic, social, cultural needs, right? So this is the cooperative. Now this is jointly owned and democratically member controlled. मतलब it's not like it is a company, it's jointly owned, means there is a joint ownership of this particular body and it is democratically member controlled. So democratic process has to be followed as far as the cooperatives are concerned. Now, as far as Indian history is concerned, how the cooperative was created, or basically what is the history behind the cooperative. So, during the British time period, in order to find out certain alternatives for the workers in the place of zamindars, because at that point of time, it was the zamindars who were employing certain workers. So, एक ही तरीके का system था. In order to find certain alternatives, the Britishers tend to focused upon certain alternative system which was in the form of cooperative. मतलब mobilize people in order to form their own group, and that will manage the entire affairs, and that will also give employment to a lot of people, and that's how the cooperative came into existence. So the Cooperative Credit Societies Act of 1904 is the pioneer act as far as the organization of cooperatives are concerned. Now fast forward to the independence, India got independent, and after that 7th schedule mein there has been incorporation of the cooperatives as a part of the state list. So there are 3 lists: union list, concurrent list and the state list. Under that, this mentions under the part of the state list. That means this lies as a state subject. State will make the legislation. So different states have created their own act with respect to the cooperatives, and the cooperative which is functioning within that particular state is being governed by the act created or developed by that particular state. But if it is a multi-state cooperative, matlab if it has to operate, matlab for example, let's say Amul or IFCO, they are operating in multiple states, so they are being managed by the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act of 2002. Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act of 2002, which gives the framework regarding this. So it was also amended in 2023. Now what is the constitutional recognition? So they are part of the state subject. So the state is having the right in order to govern that, but if the cooperative is working in multiple states, so there is an act that is created which is regarding the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act. Now there was 97th Constitutional Amendment Act that was done in 2011, and this was made as a fundamental right under Article 19. So under Article 19 1C, it was incorporated as right to establish cooperatives as a part of the fundamental right under the right to freedom. Right now, talking about this, it also is mentioned as a part of the DPSP in the same amendment, Article 43B, that was incorporated, and that was to promote the cooperatives in country. So 43B talks about the directive principle of state policy, which talks about the promotion of the cooperatives, their democratic model, right? So this is regarding the cooperatives. Now talking about who is going to manage, if it is in one state only, that particular state's law. If it is functioning in multiple states, then the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act of 2002. Now, talking about further data that you can utilize, because if there is any question asked regarding the cooperatives in India, you can utilize this data directly, that how many people are employed in that, how many cooperative societies are functioning, what kind of role they are playing, right? So these are certain important data. So 1/4 of the world's cooperatives are there in India. That means India is holding more than 25% of the cooperatives. Over 8.44 lakh is the number of cooperatives that are functioning in India. Now top states. So यहाँ पर दो trend हैं that are available, that generally you will find the successful cooperatives that are more in the western part and the southern part of country, because of the historical nature of the cooperatives and the successful cooperatives that were observed in these particular regions. So Maharashtra and Gujarat are the prominent states. Along with that, Telangana is there, Madhya Pradesh and the Karnataka. So generally the successful cooperatives or successful cooperative stories are found mainly in the western and the southern part of country. But this does not mean that the other state do not have the prominent number of cooperatives. They are also having, but yes, the trend is comparatively high in these regions. Now, what are the key initiatives that were there in order to promote the cooperative post independence that were taken? So we have talked about the Cooperative Related Act of 1904. But then after independence, what was done? There was creation of the National Cooperative Development Corporation. So National Cooperative Development Corporation is created in order to develop the cooperatives, in order to ensure that people are aware regarding the cooperative, the benefits of cooperative, and to promote the establishment of cooperative as a measure of development, so that the people should come together with this particular idea that yes, we are going to do something for the common benefit of us. So that's how it was created in 1963, in order to make people aware regarding the cooperatives. Next is the NABARD, which is the National Bank for the Agriculture and Rural Development. NABARD, it was created in 1982. This particular institution was for refinancing. That means if the cooperative wants certain support in terms of finances, this NABARD is supporting through the banks as far as the support to the cooperatives is concerned. And if we talk about self-help group, which are also somewhere similar to the cooperative, in that manner also NABARD played a very important role in order to provide them refinancing. Next is the Ministry of Cooperation. Now previously the things and the subjects that are related to the cooperatives were being governed by the Agricultural Ministry, but then in 2021 there has been a separate ministry that was created in the name of the Ministry of Cooperation, with the specific task in order to promote the cooperative and the culture of cooperative in India. So that's how the subjects were transferred to the separate ministry, which is the Ministry of Cooperation. So the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, is also heading this particular Ministry of Cooperation presently. Lastly, there is the National Cooperation Policy. So see, already a lot of steps and the groundwork was done. Now the cooperatives also need the present time ki jo needs hai. For example, the artificial intelligence, for example, technological exposure, for example, better accounting techniques. So what all professional thing, professionalism related aspects, that should also be part of that management, or the better management practices, that should also be part of the cooperatives. So that's how all the best practices are mentioned as a part of the National Cooperation Policy. Now see, since this much number of contexts are already attached with the recent years, you can expect the question which can be asked regarding the cooperatives. And recently, since Amul and IFFCO got the recognition globally also, there is a high probability that the question might be asked regarding the cooperatives. Now talking about the cooperatives in India, which were mentioned in this particular International Cooperative Alliance का जो report है उसमें, so Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation, which is working by the brand name Amul, right? So headquarter is there in Anand, Gujarat, for the prelims related fact. Now this is the Cooperative Marketing Society established in 1946. So pre-independence society initiated by Tribhuvan Das Patel. It was led by also Varghese Kurian. The idea was also channelized later on by Varghese Kurian, and he worked prominently with this particular cooperative in order to make this successful and bringing the white revolution. Covers the 33 district representing 3.6 million milk producer member. That means there are different milk producers who are also part of this particular cooperative society. They are the joint owners, right? Talking about IFFCO, Indian Farmers and Fertilizer Cooperative Limited, IFFCO, headquarter is in New Delhi, right? It is a multi-state cooperative society, 1967. The production and distribution of the fertilizer, agri-input and the rural development services. So as the name suggests, for the working for the farmers and the fertilizers related things. Now these are certain principles of the cooperative that you can directly mention as a part of the cooperative ka importance. So democratic member control, that it means it is owned and operated by the member itself. So there is a concept of the joint ownership. Autonomy and independence, it is providing autonomy and independence, and further this particular institution itself some way autonomous. So people come with their own idea, they are helping the organization to run, and that's how this cooperative is working. Education and the training information, right? So basically certain cooperatives are also functioning in the educational domain, health domain. So they are providing the skill development, functioning related best practices, professionalism, right? Cooperation among the cooperatives. So basically this is also in order to ensure success of the cooperatives. Cooperation is also needed. Concern for the community. So this is also a very important aspect, that these are being governed by a certain objective which includes the concern for community, because it is involving even the lowest strata of the society, unlike the corporates functioning, right? Members economic participation, they are the joint owners, so that's why they are made as a prominent economic stakeholder also. Lastly, voluntary and the open membership, that's how these are different from the corporates, that it is voluntary, and basically this is providing all people available to include as a part of the member of these cooperatives, right? Now, having discussed about it like this, UPSC had asked certain question regarding urban cooperative bank, then when there were a lot of issues that were there with respect to this cooperative banks. Now, similar manner mein there can be question that can be asked regarding the cooperative societies, differentiating between the cooperative society within a state and the multi-state cooperative society. So you have to answer this question. Next is regarding the Chhattisgarh train accident, which was a very unfortunate event, and obviously when we are talking about that over a period of time, there has been significant reduction of the train accidents in India, but still even a one accident which is being caused by certain factors which were avoidable, that's a very unfortunate incident, and there should be even reduction of that particular event. So it draws the attention towards the rail safety system in India. So whenever there is railway accident, there are always debate about like the infrastructure which is there since the many years, and there have not been that much maintenance that was done. Is that in the need of certain proper maintenance or complete overhaul, or what kind of things that should be done in order to prevent these particular unfortunate events? So GS paper 3, infrastructure, energy, port, road, airport, railways. GS paper 2, government policies and intervention for development. And even GS paper 4, ethics, integrity and aptitude. This particular topic is important from public service, accountability, empathy and integrity, right? Now, regarding train accidents, there is a data that you can utilize also in your answer, that there has been decline in the consequential train accidents, which are those which are impacting a lot lives, stakeholders, people, even the government resources, right? So jahan par serious repercussions involve hote hain, that is the consequential train accident. So in that particular context, this has declined from 135, which was there in 2014-15, to 31, which is 2025 and 24-25 mein. But still the accidents that include derailment and collision, that means to some way or other, there has still been failure observed with respect to the present system. That's why there is a need to ensure the complete overhaul of the system. Now, talking about the key reasons for the rail accident, the first prominent reason is the derailment, means the train is going on its track and it is getting derailed. So basically, see, there might be issue from the side of the loco pilot who is running that particular train, but also there is issue with respect to the deteriorating infrastructure, that particular railway ka jo infrastructure hai, which is the rails and all these things that are also not getting checked and maintained properly. And we have seen the incidents. For example, the Bikaner-Guwahati railway accident of 2022 highlights the issue regarding the derailment. So see, why these are being included in this data? Because sometime when UPSC mein you are going to write about these, everybody knows that these are the issues. But when you give certain credible data, this is going to impact your answer. This will help you to fetch at least half or 1 mark extra. That will create the entire difference. Then the signaling related errors. So see, though we are talking about that sometimes there have been, or not sometimes, basically a lot of places it has been observed now the electronic signaling has been ensured, but still many such places the manual signaling is being done. And when we talk about, let's say, the fog or a lot of other situations there are sometimes issues that are being created because of the signaling error. And these signaling error, because see, uske alawa you do not have much avenues available. So in that cases, there are chances that the train collision or the derailment that can happen if you apply the brake in a very small span of time. So Kanchenjunga Express train accident that was there in 2024, the main reason that was observed was regarding the faulty signal or the signaling related error. So sometimes this signaling device also creates error if there is no such human check on that. Also the operational mistakes, even if there is signaling related automation that is being done, but if there is no such oversight and there is small human defect that is being incorporated in that, or maybe a chance that the human alteration that might be done because of any reason, that creates the issue with respect to that. So incorrect manual signaling, switching errors, These causes also the railway accident. So Odisha Coromandel Express train in 2023, this was very famous train accident that had happened at that point of time. So जब भी you are observing that whether it is because of the infrastructure जो कि deteriorate हो रहा है, there is a need to revamp, there are certain operational error, there are certain signaling error, there are certain other type of error that are being there because of the associated, let's say during the time period of winter there will be fog and then there will be low visibility and that is going to create certain issues. So these are the issues which can be avoided by proper monitoring, proper checking of these things. Along with that, level crossing incidents, many a time it is observed that this is the railway track and here it is the crossing, and these particular fatak jo gates रहते हैं, these are not being closed at that point of time, and when level crossing is there, so basically you have to close this in order to allow train to pass. But if this is not crossed, and many a time it had happened that the vehicle started moving and then train comes and there is a collision, right? And the entire derailment happens. So this is also one such issue. The weather factor, because of the fog, because of any other issues that are there, along with that human errors. Sometimes suppose करो automated तो पूरी तरह तो नहीं है, right? Still there is a need to operate. If because of some things, if there is over fatigue, because it has also been reported in many such reports that the staff is over pressured, overworked, long shifts are there, that is causing the human fatigue and that is also resulting sometimes in the form of accidents. Now talking about this, what were the initiatives that were taken in order to reduce these particular accidents of railway? So first thing is regarding the revamping of the railway infrastructure. Rashtriya Rail Sanrakshana Kosh that was created in 2017-18. Now the objective was to give money in order to ensure the replacement, renewal and the upgradation of the critical safety infrastructure. It includes rails also, it includes even the coaches also, it includes also the engine, it includes the lines, it also includes a lot of other infrastructure like the anti-train collision systems. So a lot of things are being talked about in order to ensure safety in the railway operations. Then the Commission on Railway Safety, this was specifically being constituted under the Ministry of Civil Aviation, right? In order to deal with the matter of safety of the railway travel and the train operations, ki how we can ensure the safe movement of the railways and also the train operations, that is being talked about in the Commission of the Railway Safety. The ministry can be asked, which is the Ministry of Civil Aviation, not the Ministry of Railways. Then the electrical and the electronic interlocking system. So generally the interlocking that is being done right now is also the manual one, right? So there is centralized operation that is needed. There should be a proper centralized observing, and right now when we are talking about a lot of automation, here also there should be automation along with the human oversight on that. So this can reduce a lot of accident to the significant extent. Next is Kavach, which is basically the automatic train protection system, or including also the anti-train collision system or collision devices, right? It is being developed by the Research and the Research Design and Standards Organization, RDSO, which is Kavach technology, which is preventing the collision, right? Along with that, obviously, when we have the GPS related equipments, we have our own NAVIC, right? So that should be deployed, that should be utilized in order to prevent, providing the early warning with respect to any probable collisions, or this can identify certain hotspots, even blind spots with respect to this, and that can be prevented. So there should be fog safety device. So jab visibility kam hai, that you can utilize the technology in order to find that, right? Along with that, the ultrasonic flaw detection system. So the rails which are there on which the train is moving, so those particular rails, maybe there are many a time there are cracks that are being observed, and because of which there are railway accidents. So this particular type of systems, ultrasonic flaw detection system, it is through the sound and the other type of waves we are identifying that whether there is any kind of failure in this particular rail system, or there is any probable crack that is there. Now along with that, it is being talked about that there is technology, so there is harmonization that is needed among the technology along with the human skills. So without human skills, still the system will be vulnerable. So we have to ensure that on one side there is technological upgradation, on the other side there should be skill development, there should be more focus towards the reskilling of the people, there should be more focus upon the basic, providing the basic facilities to those people, कि प्रिवेंट करे उस फटीग को विच इज बीइंग डेवलप्ड इन दोज लोको पायलट्स जहां पर इशू क्रिएट होता है कई बार, एंड दैट कॉजेज द मैनुअल इशू. सो देयर इज अ नीड टू इंश्योर द कंप्लीट revamp of the system, and it is not because of this one incident, but there are many such incidents that can be prevented in future if we are going to revamp and fast track these particular processes. Clear? Last in this is regarding the 7 Indian institutions find place in top 100 in the QS Asia University ranking. This is not about the global ranking. We are talking about the Asia ranking of QS, which is the Quakerly Simons ranking of 2026. Now, obviously, when we are talking about education related things, educational infrastructure, global cooperation, right? So GS paper 3, science and technology, research and development, innovation, it is important. Also GS paper 2, social issues or social justice, right? Development management of the education, government policies, social justice related aspects are important, right? देखो, broadly अगर prelims related certain questions are being asked, they will not generally will ask which institution is at what place, but generally they are going to ask certain statement regarding that in the present ranking there is no institute from India in top 100. Like this, the generic statement they are going to pose, and the answer will be clear if you are having an idea regarding this. So what is being highlighted as far as this report is concerned? So the Quakerly Simons report talks about that in 24 universities which were there in 2016 to presently 294 in 2026, there has been significant jump in the India's representation in the QS ranking. That means presently 294 universities which are part of the QS ranking framework. Now how many universities? Roughly 1500 universities were part of that particular evaluation. So which are the universities which got place in the top 100? 5 IITs, which is being topped by IIT Delhi, then IISc Bangalore is there, then along with the Delhi University. So these are the institutions which find their place in top 100 in the QS Asia ranking, right? India dominated which particular domain mein? Papers for faculty indicators. So there are multiple things. For example, there are certain criteria which we will also discuss regarding this, is for example including the academic and the employer reputation. For example, faculty to student ratio, कि भाई कितने faculties पे कितने students हैं, right? Along with that, international research network, how much collaboration, joint research that were being done. Then the citation being done, कि उनके रिसर्च को कितने लोगों ने साइट किया है, कोट किया. पेपर्स पब्लिश बाय फैकल्टी, हियर इंडिया डोमिनेटेड. टॉप 10 में टॉप 5 आर फ्रॉम इंडिया, राइट? स्टाफ क्वालिफिकेशंस, share of the international faculty, students in their respective university, exchange participation, right? So these are the type of indicators. So in this it is being talked about that India dominated in the paper for faculty indicator, and the top with the 5 universities ranked among the Asia's top 10, 28 among top 50. That means this is the indicator which India dominated. But overall mein 100 mein India has got the 7 places. Right, 1529 universities which were part of this particular ranking framework. Now, when we talk about the top spot, the University of Hong Kong took the top spot, and along with that the Peking University in China, which is at the 2nd place. So obviously the China has dominated. India is just behind the China. China has 395 institutions which featured in this particular ranking. So that's how India has improved significantly. But yes, still there is a lot to done, because when we see this at the global level, still India is lagging behind. Top 100 mein there is no such institution from the side of India. That means there is a need to plug the further gaps that are pertaining with respect to the higher education. Now talking about this ranking wala thing, India is also having certain domestic framework with respect to ranking. So what are the India's domestic framework? There is the NIRF, which is the National Institutional Ranking Framework, which is providing ranking to the Indian institutions and universities in different categories based upon these particular criteria, including there are papers published, there is like funding related things, there are multiple other things like the research and development mein kitna contribution hua. There are multiple avenues through which the NIRF ranking is being published. So there are multiple indicators regarding that, and it was launched in 2015. Which is the department concerned, because there may be a question regarding that. So Department of Higher Education, Ministry of Education, which is part of that. Now talking about the next, which is the All India Survey of Higher Education. This is another framework which is launched in 2010-11. There are several parameters such as the teachers, student enrollment, programs, examination, results, educational finance, infrastructure. So this talks about the basic things, and this talks about the further higher aspects, including the research and development mein contribution, the faculties, the international exchange kitna ho raha hai, right? All these things are being part of this. Now, talking about the initiative that have been taken previously, what we have talked about is the India's framework with respect to ranking. But regarding the improvement in the higher education, because there may be a question regarding there are certain challenges that the institutions in India are facing as far as the higher education is concerned, what have been done by government in order to revamp that. So these are the solutions that government has provided. There is the National Education Policy, which is recently launched. This is the NEP 2020. Now this also talks about the framework which includes from pre-primary to the higher education, which also includes the university education. So ensuring the quality education across India, National Education Policy. Next is regarding the institution of eminence, which provides the autonomy to the institutions, both the public institutions as well as the private institutions, talking about providing certain funding, international class infrastructure, collaboration with the foreign universities. So to create the institutions of eminence, this particular scheme is there. The certain institutions are being highlighted and identified, and they are being promoted through this. Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhiyan RUSA, which was launched in 2013 in order to promote the quality education as far as the higher education and the university education is concerned. And lastly, Swayam, which is the massive open online courses platform, which provides the online education and online facilities to the students through different courses which are being launched by different universities, and student can do these particular courses at their own place through the mock platform, right? So these are the initiatives that have been done in order to improve the universities related things, including the talking about quality, including talking about the funding, including talking about the infrastructural support, talking about the quality and all, and even the access related aspects. Okay. So next we have to discuss certain quick updates. So let's start the discussion of the quick updates. First is regarding the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. A few days back, I think 2 or 3 days back, we have already discussed about this. So there is NCLAT, which is hearing the appeals from the NCLT, which is the National Company Law Tribunal, Insolvency and the Bankruptcy Board of India, Competition Commission of India, which is a statutory body, and also National Financial Reporting Authority, NFRA. So these are the bodies. The appeals of this goes to the NCLAT, which is the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. So recently the context is that the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal lifted the ban on WhatsApp from sharing the data with the Meta platforms for the advertising purpose for 5 years. So this ban has been lifted. Now, which particular section is governing this? It is the section 410 of the Companies Act, जिसके अंदर ये form किया गया था. It hears the appeal against the order passed by these particular bodies that we have discussed. Okay. So National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. Next is regarding the emission gap report. So UNEP has published this report, United Nations Environment Program, which has published this report, emission gap report of 25, and this is talking about the off target. That means we are still away from achieving the targets which are mentioned for 21st century. So the point is that, see, Paris agreements ke saath there were certain things attached, which is the nationally determined contribution. Means countries have to take their voluntary pledges, and these things they should be achieving by the target and the things that they have committed. India have also taken the target of achieving certain aspects, including the 45% to 50% of the non-fossil fuel based energy generation by 2030. India has achieved it by 2025. So like this, other country have also taken, 60-70 country have submitted their NDC updated one. But this is being assessed by UNEP that whatever NDCs are being published by countries, उसके बाद भी 2.3 to 2.5 degree Celsius temperature will increase. What was the target that was set by the Paris Agreement? 2%, and try to reduce it to 1.5%. But that is even beyond that, and this will be having a lot of repercussions, including the sea level rise, and that is going to impact a lot of things at the global level, including the submergence of the small island countries. So greenhouse gas emission is increasing. That has also increased in 24. To align with this target, it is being mentioned that bhai, there is a need to reduce roughly 55% of the GHG's emission by 2035. But the countries are not moving towards the reduction, and that's why It is being mentioned कि early peak हो so that there will be further reduction of the GHG emission. When we talk about the highest absolute increase in GHG means total greenhouse gases emission done by that country, obviously India and China are dominating that. That means India and China are emitting more. But when we talk about the per capita, matlab individual like me, you, or anybody else in India, average basis pays emitting, that is way less than the global average. Why our total GHG emission is high? Because of the population, obviously, right? So this is the issue that is being highlighted by the emission gap report. Next is regarding the Umangot river. So this is also sometimes known as the Dauki river, right? So in Meghalaya, if you go for any specific reason, you will find out the natural beauty in Meghalaya, but this particular beauty is further enhanced by this river, because you will see this river, that boats are moving in this river, and you can find the entire surface or the subsurface of that particular river, because this is one of the cleanest river in that particular region. But there are reports talking about that this river is now turning murky. That means we are polluting even that particular river. So it is originating from the eastern part of Shillong Peak, where it is lying in the Meghalaya, right? Flowing southwards through the Dauki, a small town, and then eventually, and where it is lying, Jaintia Hills district of the Meghalaya, right? And then it is entering into the Bangladesh region. It forms the natural boundary between the Reepnar, which is the Jaintia Hills, and the Hima Kairim, which is the Khasi Hills. So Jaintia and Khasi Hills के बीच में flow होती है, and this makes the boundary between them. So this is regarding the Umangot river or the Dauki river. Generally, UPSC asks in the form of the match the following, this region and this particular river. Next is regarding the Vaishvik Bharatiya Vaigyanik Fellowship, which is also known as Vaibhav. So Union Ministry recently interacted with the Vaishvik Bharatiya Vaigyanik Vaibhav Fellows across the world, right? So these are the people who are NRIs, means the Indian people residing abroad, or maybe the nationals of other country, and there is this particular Ministry of Science and Technology, Department of Science and Technology, which is the concerned department and ministry. It was launched in 2023. Objective क्या है? The scientists from the Indian diaspora, whether Indian citizen or have taken the citizenship of any other country, with the institutions of the high eminence, or Indian higher educational institutions, or universities, or publicly funded institutions or universities, to collaborate with them. That means they are coming up with their own set of thought process thinking into the Indian university, so that there will be revamping and the global acknowledgement with respect to whatever new or the best practices that are there, that are being done in that country, can be incorporated in India. So Vaibhav Fellow can choose an Indian institution to work with and can spend 2 months each year there for up to 3 years. So 3 year के लिए है, 2 months in each year they can spend there. They will talk about the best practices. They will help the university revamping their infrastructure, thought process, and a lot of other things. Next is regarding the quantum gravity. So there has been a study which has been proposed that the black hole morsels could offer insights into the quantum gravity. Now, what is the black hole morsel? So it is basically a hypothetical concept कि when the black hole is being created, there are certain small patches also where the small black holes are being observed. So it is the micro black hole, sometimes also known as the micro black hole, which is smaller than their parent black hole but comparable to the mass of the asteroid. So बहुत small size का होता है, and that's why they are also heated up or comparatively hotter as compared to the black hole, right? Now, what is the concept of the quantum gravity? Generally, we tend to read gravity with respect to the larger bodies, right? But when we talk about in the form of the quantum mechanics, this is basically the combination of two different things. Quantum mechanics and understanding the concept of the gravity. When we combine this, it becomes the quantum gravity. So it seeks to describe the gravity according to the principle of the quantum mechanics, right? It seeks to reconcile two theories, quantum mechanics along with the gravity, that at that scale, at the micro and the nano scale, or at the quantum scale, how this gravity is going to react and behave. This is basically the study about that. So it is to understand the physics within the black hole, quantum entanglement, which is basically at the micro level, right? The condensed matter physics. So all these manner mein it is going to help us to understand. Next is regarding the advanced driver assistance system. So Union government is considering mandating the advanced driver assistance system in new models of truck and buses. So basically, what is this advanced driver assistance system? As the name suggests, it is going to be the assistant of the driver. It is the technological assistant. So there are certain problems that are being faced by the drivers while taking reverse, while moving the vehicle on the right side or left side. Sometimes they are facing certain blind spots. So this is going to assist them in that particular situation. There are certain other things that can be done through these particular type of the driver assistance system. So it is going to coordinate among the technologies, and that will help the driver to operate the vehicle more safely. Okay. It will include the systems like lidar will be there, radar, camera to work together to ensure that, such as the pedestrian detection, lane departure warning. So all these things will be assessed by this. The range of feature include the adaptive cruise control, means whenever the vehicle is moving on the straight line, adaptive cruise control can be there, automatic emergency brake if there is certain obstacle that is under their range, then blind spot detection that will be there, then the cross traffic alert, parking assistant. All these facilities are going to be provided by the advanced driver assistance system. What will be the benefit? So there are sometimes the accident takes place because of the human error, or sometimes because of the error caused by the lack of coordination between two people who are there in vehicle, and in that particular sense, this is going to be a comparatively better and technologically equipped solution. Last is regarding the PLI scheme for the specialty steel. So Union Ministry of Steel launched the third round of the PLI, production linked incentive, for the specialty steel. That means the high quality, high value and high graded steel that is used for strategic purposes. For example, defense, aerospace, energy, automobile. Wahan par based upon the production we are providing incentives, right? So it covers 22 product subcategories, which includes the segment including the strategic steel grades. So strategic grade ka jo steel hota hai, which is the high quality, high value steel, that is under its ambit. Now there will be incremental sales pay. There will be certain incentives or the production linked incentive that will be provided. Data is not exactly important, but yes, having an idea regarding this scheme is important. Next is maximum 5 years ka time period hai from 25-26. So this is the time period. What is the base year? 24-25. This is regarding the production linked incentive. Now this is there even for textile, many other schemes ke liye this is production linked incentive is being provided. So with this, we have completed the news today discussion of the 5th of November, right? Already there must be certain question on your screen. Try to solve that. I have also provided you certain questions. Try to even solve that question. Post that in the comment section. Also, whatever need to be discussed in a detailed manner, I have tried to provide you with the detailed. Whatever need to be covered in briefly, along with the indication that whether it is important from prelims or mains perspective, I have also tried to cover that thing. Now, make sure that whatever data fact example I tried to give you, that should be incorporated in your notes also, and that will make your preparation further holistic and applicable. Because if the applicability is not being ensured over there, then there will be certain issues with respect to the preparation. So try to plug these particular gaps, and don't worry, you will be definitely going to success with this examination with the approach that I am recommending. Okay, chalo. So thank you everyone. We'll meet again in certain other discussion. Thank you.